Welcome to our Devos, where we have been looking at deliverance, humility, and extreme measures. Progressive deliverance, humility, and extreme measures, I should say. And today I want to give you a little bit of an interlude. We've been talking about this demon that's been torturing this child and how Jesus delivered the child, and we see that happening, and the disciples couldn't do it. That's all in day 1, 2, and 3. But today I want to give you some humility lessons from the humble king. Humility lessons from the humble king. I'm just going to read these verses. There's quite a bit. So we're going to just tell this story quickly because this is such an object lesson here. It says, they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, what were you discussing on the way? The disciples were having this conversation. But they kept silent, for on the way they had argued with one another about who was the greatest. This is a typical high school type of argument. And some of the disciples were pretty young. John was really young. He was a teenager. Who was the greatest? You're going to be the greatest? Who's going to be? Which seat are you going to get in heaven? This is another discussion that's brought up later on. Where are you going to be? On the right or the left? Where am I going to be? Okay? So they didn't want to admit to Jesus that they were talking about who was going to be the greatest. Now, the problem is, remember, he's Jesus, so he kind of knows. It says, and he sat down and he called the 12, and he said to them, if anyone would be first, greatest, he must be last of all and servant of all. All right, this is such a powerful statement. And this is where we get the business, and this is turned into a business term, but it's not a business term, servant leadership, where you are willing to do and serve the people that you are leading. It's the difference between the boss that sits behind the desk and says, go, and the boss that gets ahead of the people and grabs them by the hand and says, let's go. Those are two different things. One is executive, dynamic, default leadership, where do what I say, not what I do. And one is servant leadership that says, let's do this. We're going to do this together. Servant leadership. And he says, if any is to be first, let him be last. And it says, and he took a child and put the child in the midst of them. And taking him in his arms, he said, whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me. Okay, or receives not me, but him who sent me. Now, here's kind of what we're going to explore just quickly. When we are willing to lay aside our rights and our privileges, that's when we know we're heading closer into leadership. When we are willing to serve in obscurity, that's when we know we're truly acting in leadership. That's when we know we're truly on the right track. Here's the formula. You humble yourself and God will exalt you. You get as low as you can and God will one day establish you. You suffer in silence and God will one day declare that you are okay and you are right. It's humility. It's putting yourself last. It's not expecting your name to be in bright lights. I'm going to just say this, and I get to say this because he's not here and I don't have occasion to say it often in front of him or in front of the church. But I want to talk about Pastor Mike and let you know that he is, in my experience, the most humble pastor on the face of the earth. Here's how you know he's the most humble pastor on the face of the earth. I don't know the face of the earth, but definitely the most humble that I know. The reason why is because of me. That's why I know that he's humble. Not because of me in terms of me being here, but in terms of me, of the fact that he has trained me, he's developed me, and he has allowed me to do things in the church as the second person that helps to run the church in such an esteemed capacity, and he is not requiring any type of recognition. We talked to a consultant about kind of plans for our future and the building of the church. And the consultant says, this is what he said, this is a consultant. Pastor Mike won't say this, I'm going to say it. He said he's not met a pastor that's willing to share his pulpit. Most founding pastors, this is what they do. They preach, they teach, and if somebody says, well, why don't you let this person from your staff speak more? Why don't you let them do? Most pastors go, no, this is kind of my deal, and I want to be there on Easter. Well, Pastor Mike has constantly deferred and constantly allowed me to lead with him and oftentimes put me ahead of him in every area. This is what he does. And because of that, this is how I look at leadership because of him. Because I know that there's somebody that God is going to raise up in the church that's better than me at doing things. I know that when there's a project up, there are people that are smarter than me at handling the project. I know that. It's not an issue of, oh, well, I think you just got to learn more. No, I know that there are people that are better at that. And I learned that from Pastor Mike. And humility says, I am going to put others before me. I don't want recognition. I want people to be served. And Jesus was like this. Jesus was the one holding the screaming child. This is what we see here. And he says, if you're willing to do this, this makes you great. And this is how you know that our church was founded and started and continue to be run by a leader who has the humility of Jesus, who has the mindset of Jesus. So I say all that to say this. We see here what really comes out, and you'll see how it all connects here, from the disciples. It said, John said to him, Teacher, we saw somebody casting out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he was not following us. Now, this is why context matters. What was the whole first part of this section about? About the fact that the disciples could not cast out a certain demon. And then they saw another guy and he was casting out those demons. And so, other demons. And they said, look, he wasn't in our crew. So we tried to stop him. Why? Because they were insecure that he was doing a good job compared to the failure that they had. That is a lack of humility. That's pride. This is the Holy Spirit just stopping me in this. The way pride gets into your heart is you start to look at how other people are doing something good, and then pretty soon you say the reason why I'm doing bad is because they're doing something good. That's pride. Those two have nothing to do. The reason why your neighbor is rich, the reason why you're poor is not because your neighbor's rich. The reason why you're not doing well in your marriage is not because your brother-in-law has a good marriage. Those two are usually have nothing to do with anything. But the problem is pride will tell you these two cause each other. I want to tell you that humility will say what Jesus says. Don't stop him. For no one who does a mighty work in my name will be able soon afterward to speak evil of me. For the one who is not against us is for us. Truly I say to you, whoever gives you a cup of water to drink because you belong to Christ will by no means lose his reward. Again, humility in practice, these little things, these little acts. And he says, if that person's not against us, they are for us. If they're doing the same work, they are with us. But that requires humility to say that we're all on the same team. The results matter. It requires humility. Humility means I'm going to step out of the limelight and I'm going to allow the work to be done and to speak for itself and that God gets the glory. When you've achieved that, you're doing well. When you don't care about getting credit, you're doing well. When you don't care about the idea being yours, you're doing well. When you don't care about people giving you credit publicly and you're willing just to let the results be and let people be served, you are doing well. This is why so many businesses fail. This is why so many people leave their jobs. This is why marriages fail, because we are not willing to shut up and get out of the spotlight and allow other people to be esteemed above ourselves. Here's how it works. God will do the lifting. God will do the promotion. You have to be willing to suffer in silence, and God will, in his time, lift you up.